What's happening, YouTube? It's your boy AJ Talk Sports. Back at it again live with another BBM7 today, coming at you guys from the 107. This is the draft guys, BBM7, the 107. This is the BBM7 championship team we're drafting here today, guys. And so at the 107, I'm going to go ahead and select none other than the best pick on the board in the first round outside of... Honestly, honestly, guys, I have Jeanty ranked 101. I think I'm going to come out and say that at this point. I have Ashton Jeanty ranked 101. To me, he is the most freaky alien player in the NFL that we have just somehow forgotten his level of talent and what level of upside he brings for the, in fantasy. And I think Ashton Jeanty, guys, has 30 points a game ability in fantasy football this year for a number of different factors. And let's kind of break down the why about that. Let's start about Ashton Jeanty as a prospect, guys. Coming out of Boise State, I mean, we all let's rewind our brains back, guys, to last year when Ashton Jeanty posted, in my opinion, the single greatest college football season we've ever seen at running back, with 2,600 yards on the ground, rushing, on over 400, damn near 400 total touches in just 14 games. At 2,600 yards in 14 games, guys, is beyond comprehension. Damn near 200 yards rushing a game. And the year before, guys, he averaged 13 yards a reception on 43 catches, which is like what wide receiver prospects do, guys, coming out of college. And so we're getting, in my opinion, the most prolific rusher in college football history, who also has one of the greatest receiving seasons from an efficiency and explosive standpoint we've ever seen, with a 13% target share, guys, which is unheard of at running back. And so, not only that, we look at what Ashton Jeanty did in his first year, posted almost 100 yards rushing and 350 yards receiving on 55 catches, and probably what was the most anemic offensive environment imaginable. And so, guys, we're on the clock here yet again at pick, pick 18. And I'm going to go ahead and select none other than the other biggest freaking alien in the entire NFL and select Brock Bowers, who, in my opinion, should be the 102, honestly, in all formats. And, just finishing our, point about Ashton Jeanty, guys, had 55 receptions with the Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly offense, guys. And so to me, what that says is, with Clint Kubiak coming in to the building, and with Clint Kubiak coming in, Fernando Mendoza, the number 1 overall quarterback, who to me is a, if Fernando Mendoza, guys, is Brock Purdy, Brock Purdy, as that's not even a high bar. If he's Brock Purdy, Ashton Jeanty is the number 1 overall pick in fantasy, and Brock Bowers is the number 2 overall pick in fantasy. So you got Clint Kubiak, who just took Sam Darnold to a Super Bowl. You got the number 1 overall pick at quarterback, who was a very strong prospect, who just won the national championship. And then you got Tyler Lindenbaum, the best center in the entire National Football League. And we all know, if you know football, that centers are a quarterback's best friend. And they help tremendously as far as, especially rookies, reading protections, understanding pass sets, and, getting the O-line into the right protections. And so that takes a lot of pressure off Mendoza. Clint Kubiak is, we got the Super Bowl champion offensive mind. We got the that college football championship quarterback. And we got the greatest running back prospect, to me, of the last decade in Ashton Jeanty, and the greatest tight end prospect of the last, generation in Brock Bowers. And so we're on the clock here at pick 31. Share my screen here, guys. We're going to do something a bit unconventional, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up my favorite player, and I'm going to take Luther Burden, a player that I believe has the ability to enter the wide receiver 1 overall tier of players. And I'm talking about, yes, Luther Burden entering, and being this year's JSN, this year's, how Amon-Ra St. Brown broke out in his second year. And I think Luther Burden has that ability as a football player, guys. And so I'm happy to take him ahead of ADP. I'm happy to take him here at pick 31 and bring his upside onto this team at pick 31. And so, guys, to sweep the podium in Best Ball Mania 7, we're going to need to access ceilings that the rest of the field is not tapping into. We're going to need to free our mind from all perception of ADP, all illusions of roster construction, all illusions of player takes, consensus takes, and free ourselves from the human need to be perfect and be very flexible and free with our decision making and our thoughts and our creativity, and expand our perception on who these players really are, and think from the first principles of creativity and the first principles of breaking down player analysis and player takes, and then doing so freely for 18 individual times, and then synthesizing that to create the BBM 7 champion, which is what we're here to do today. And so feeling absolutely blessed to do that with y'all, and we're going to go ahead and continue to execute on this draft and see who we take here in the 4th round after we get a sip of water. And so we're on the clock here, guys, and we got an absolute gift by this room. And we're going to take Coleston Loveland on this team, who I believe allows us untapped potential and ceiling at the flight tight end and flex spot, guys. And so let me go ahead and, stop sharing my screen. Give me 1 second. Go ahead and share this. Pull this back up, guys. So at pick 7 for the BBM 7 championship team to sweep the podium, we have now brought on Ashton Jeanty, Brock Bowers, Luther Burden, and Coleston Loveland. Let's take a deep breath on that, guys. So why did we pick Luther Burden ahead of ADP, guys? Well, it came out earlier this week after just a couple practices and Bears OTAs that Ben Johnson, who we know is basically an enigma, from a personality standpoint, he's like a Bill Belichick, honestly, to me, in terms of just his approach to the game, his level of focus, and will to win. And he came out and said Luther Burden is simply playing at a different speed than everyone else, and that Luther Burden, he's buying his stock. And to me, guys, that is all I need to hear from someone like Ben Johnson, who is not in the business of just gassing up and glazing players for fun. And I look at Luther Burden as a prospect, guys, was quite honestly a historic prospect following his second season in college, when he put up 1,200 yards on a 33% target share, 70% catch rate at age 19, which is truly unheard of, guys. And so hold on, we're back on the clock. And wow, guys, we got an absolute blessing, a gift. We got Jaylen Waddle to fall all the way back to us here at pick 55, which is transcendent, to be quite honest with you, from a ceiling perspective, guys. And so Jaylen Waddle, oh my gosh, at pick 55, Jaylen Waddle, to me, guys, should be going in the 3rd round ahead of players like Zay Flowers, ahead of players like, honestly, Malik Neighbors, in the same range as a Rashee Rice, a T. Higgins, a Devontae Smith, because, in my opinion, guys, Jaylen Waddle is a more talented version of Devontae Smith. They were teammates together at the University of Alabama, and when Jaylen Waddle was on the team, he was way outperforming Devontae Smith. And what did he do in college, guys? Jaylen Waddle was a super special player. In just 6 games in his final year in college, guys, he posted 600 receiving yards. So yes, 100 yards per game on a ridiculous 21 yards per reception on a 90% catch rate, guys. And he had 1,300 special teams yards the previous season. So this guy is just an absolute freaking dynamic, explosive player, and can really do it from all quadrants of the field, as we have seen in his NFL career, as he came in the NFL as a rookie and immediately put up 100 targets on 140 catches. 140 targets and 104 catches, and then scaled down ever since, and actually had seen his target share drop, guys. And hold on, we're OTC. Let's get on the clock here. Wow, guys, Parker Washington gets pulled up to pick 65. That's very impressive. So looking at the board here, fair to say that we can just take Caleb Williams on this team and not feel the need to take any other player, because wide receiver just got absolutely wiped at this turn with 6 straight receivers DJ Moore, Christian Watson, Jordan Tyson, Brian Thomas Jr., Marvin Harrison, and then Parker Washington gets pulled up to the mid-6th as well. So we'll take Caleb, and we're not going to feel bad about that whatsoever. Obviously correlates perfectly with Burden and Loveland, and the fact that we were able to get Waddle here at pick 55 makes me feel really good about this wide receiver run going, because I think Waddle is in tier above all of these wide receivers except Parker. I do believe Parker has the upside of a Jaylen Waddle, but Waddle's upside, guys, is honestly much more than Parker Washington because he's just so much more of an explosive player. I mean, look how dynamic and diversified Jaylen Waddle's route tree and profile has been from a receiving standpoint, guys. Comes in the NFL, as I mentioned, is an underneath, target hog with 140 targets on 900 air yards. And then the year after, doubles his yards per reception and goes from 9 to 18 and posts 1,400 yards receiving in his second year. Finishing wide receiver, back-to-back years as wide receiver, a top 15 wide receiver, guys. And then through injuries, through horrible quarterback play, he has fallen. Hold on, guys. We're back on the board. Let's get locked in. DK Metcalf has fallen all the way to 76. We could look to take him, but I'm not interested in him. I'm going to go ahead and take Herbert, who I believe has the potential to win MVP this year, and allows us access to ceilings at quarterback, which are really unattainable by the rest of the field here. And to me, we're done at quarterback now with Caleb Williams and Justin Herbert entirely. We're going to be done at quarterback. And so I love just taking that second quarterback here in this range where it feels pretty dead at running back with Pollard, Harvey, Dowdle, all guys that I don't see finishing the season strongly at all and are just kind of either starting running backs or, barely, in committees on horrible offenses. Or we could take, what could be easily the MVP of the league in Justin Herbert this year with Mike McDaniels. And so allowing us just to take that second quarterback and feel free to be done at quarterback the rest of this draft, to me, is a sigh of relief. And just kind of game theory optimal given this flat tier at running back, the flat tier at receiver as well. So I'm cool on that. And wow, guys, Quentin Johnston went at pick 77. I was wondering, I was like, well, where's QJ? So he's not even going to be an option for us to backstack at 90. So we'll see who we take here at pick 90. Yeah, guys, as I mentioned, just talking through how this board looks. I mean, we double tap quarterback here at 6-7, and I don't feel bad about that at all because look at the players who went in between Caleb and Herbert. Don't see anyone with league winning potential here, quite honestly. Wow, Kyle, Manungai, and Quorum both go here early. I was looking to target them, so we're going to be on OTC here in just a second. Addison is there. Godwin is there. Michael Wilson is there. I don't even mind Addison, guys. At these prices, that's a really good price on Addison. Kyler Murray is solid. He's not, a special, but I think I like Addison a lot more from a talent perspective than any of these other receivers. And he is a nice ADP value. We'll go Addison here. I love that. So look at this receiving room, guys. We got Burden, Waddle, and Addison, who are three players who I think all could take massive leaps this year. We know they're very good at football. Addison, let's look at Addison's profile, guys. He's not even a player that I draft very often because he kind of goes in a weird range for me here where I'm either usually taking like running back or quarterback or, Laporta or QJ. So Jordan Addison, guys, most comparable to Deontay Johnson. Prime Deontay Johnson was actually pretty nice, but Addison, what did he do in the NFL, guys? He comes in the NFL immediately as a rookie and posts 900 receiving yards with Sam Darnold at quarterback, I believe, or was that Kirk Cousins' final year? I can't even remember. But 900 yards on 13 yards per reception and 10 touchdowns. Following year basically repeats that with 873 and 9 touchdowns. And then last year, guys, has a bad year because he was playing with basically the worst quarterback in the NFL in JJ McCarthy. And so I think these first 2 years in the NFL is more along the lines of who Addison is as a player. And he did that in the second year in only 15 games. So was on pace to actually have a better year than a rookie year. So I think, okay, we're on the clock, guys. This board is ripping. We're on the board. Jacoby Myers, Xavier Worthy, Matthew Golden, This is a tough spot. I'm going to go Worthy. I'm going to go Worthy, guys. He's a player I don't draft much of. I do have Matthew Golden here at 108. I think Worthy does have more upside than Matthew Golden. Obviously, less target competition on the Chiefs. Better quarterback. Year 3 for Worthy. We could see a traditional year 3 breakout for him. Bigger spike week potential, in my personal opinion, than Golden. And Golden could come back to us here. Unlikely, but it's possible. If we don't get Golden, guys, who do we want to take? Jonathan Brooks is here. That could be interesting for us at running back. Probably pass on him because he plays the Seahawks week 17, and that's not ideal. Gainwell is there. Golden is there. Is there anyone we want to look at deeper? We could take Jordan Mason, guys, because we do have Addison on this team. Let's see here. I might look to take Jordan Mason, guys. I'm not going to lie. I think I'm actually going to take Jordan Mason, guys. I'd never take Jordan Mason. It's not a sexy pick at all. I know Kenneth Gainwell is there. That's way more sexy. But Jordan Mason could just straight up be a 20 carry a game guy for the Vikings. They play the Jets week 17. I mean, Kenneth Gainwell is gone. I'm just going to freaking do it. Man. Romeo Doubs is there. I do like Doubs. Let's go Mason. Let's do something different. Let's go Mason on this team, guys. Let's think creatively. I mean, let's correlate. We have Jordan Addison. Why not take Jordan Mason on the team? Double Jordan on the Minnesota Vikings. Running back here, I think he is the best pick at running back. Yes, more than Chris Rodriguez, who's dealing with a foot injury. And Jonathan Brooks, guys, I just don't like his playoff schedule at all. I do love Romeo Doubs, and he definitely would be a nice addition to this receiving core, but he could probably fall in price as the summer goes along, and he might fall as well in this room because people know AJ Brown is on the team now, and he could easily fall to 127. But Jordan Mason is also a player, guys, that I don't take or target often at all. But in the 10th round, I mean, who's to say that he couldn't be a league winner and be a David Montgomery of the Minnesota Vikings here? His only competition is Aaron Jones, who's pretty much, in my opinion, guys, just done. His body is just not going to be able to hold up. And so Jordan Mason, to me, profiles as a guy who, I mean, look at Jordan Mason, guys. The Vikings didn't bring in anyone at running back because Jordan Mason is good at football. 3 straight seasons of, his entire NFL career, guys, 5 yards a carry. Basically 6 yards a carry as a rookie. He can catch the ball, not a good pass catcher, but he can do it. And a good goal line back. And we could see Jordan Mason have a breakout year, 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns with the Vikings offense ascending. I like that. I like that pick, guys, especially with the Addison correlation. And we're OTC, and I'm going to go ahead and we got Diggs on this team, guys. I'm going to take Diggs, specifically for the ADP value. I think Diggs is a guy who's going to absolutely skyrocket to whatever team he gets signed to, whether that's the Chiefs, whether that's the Chargers, whether that's the, whatever team he goes to. I think he's going to absolutely skyrocket in value. So I'm happy to get him here at these prices. A lot of, flat range at tight end, like 5 tight ends are on the board at this spot. So, we could have gone any of them, but we'll hope to see who comes back to us with our next turn. But I think, looking at that 2v2, guys, I mean, we could have gone Romeo Doubs and who was there at running back? Tyrone Tracy. Romeo Doubs and Tyrone Tracy. Or we could have gone Mason and Stefon Diggs. And to me, Mason and Stefon Diggs is better for this team because obviously we have the Addison correlation, so we get that. They play the Jets in week 17, guys, so Jordan Mason could easily finish with 100 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. And wow, massive tight end run, guys. Look at this. Kittle, Ferguson, Kincaid, Mark Andrews, and Likely. all off the board here. Very, very interesting tight end run here. So I picked Stefon Diggs in this round. And wow, another tight end off the board here, guys. Tight end's absolutely ripping. That is insane. Insane stuff. Let's take more sip of water here and focus up. We see Sam Darnold off the board. But, yeah, guys, just going back to Jordan Mason. I mean, why couldn't Jordan Mason break out this year and have 200 rushing attempts on the Vikings offense with Kyler Murray? Hold on, guys, we're OTC. Okay, Keaton Mitchell was definitely looking at him. Tyrone Tracy is a faller, but to me, on this team, we're going to go ahead and stack up Oronde and Gadsden with Justin Herbert because we do currently have a naked Justin Herbert. And Oronde Gadsden, to me, has the most upside at tight end. Honestly, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I think Oronde Gadsden has the most upside at tight end after Coleston Loveland. I think Oronde Gadsden has more upside than all these other tight ends. I think he's honestly a better receiving tight end than all of these guys. And I think a healthy Kyle Pitts, who we believe Kyle Pitts is to be in our mind, is actually who Oronde Gadsden is. A little bit less explosive than Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts, number 4 overall pick for a reason. Oronde Gadsden is not that explosive, but that role that we envision Kyle Pitts in, being that kind of move wide receiver hybrid tight end player, is I think who Oronde Gadsden is, being positioned as in this Chargers offense. And we did take Justin Herbert here because we believed in him, just taking him naked when QJ was already gone. And so to me, getting Gadsden here as the backstack and who could honestly lead the Chargers in receiving touchdowns this year and add to our access at untapped ceilings at tight end and flex, to me brings this team a ceiling that is not going to be attainable by anyone else. And we're OTC here again. We could go Jawan Jennings, guys, and just keep building out this Vikings thing. Jonah Coleman is there as well. I like Jalen Nailor, guys, a lot. I like Jalen Nailor a lot. I'm going to be honest with y'all. I like him a lot. I like Jonah Coleman a lot too, but I have a lot of Jonah Coleman. And at this point, with Jordan Mason, I feel confident that Jonah Coleman's services are not as needed. And to me, guys, Jalen Nailor has tremendous upside. He was a player I was a massive fan of coming out of the University of Michigan State. And looking at Jalen Nailor's profile, guys, a player that the Vikings just let go just because they couldn't afford him because they know they're going to have to pay Addison soon. And so I think it's also bullish for Addison that Nailor is gone because very similar profiles as down the field threats. Jawan Jennings is an underneath guy. So that honestly hurts Justin Jefferson, if anyone, or Hawkinson. He's most comparable to Sterling Shepard, but Nailor is honestly faster than that, guys, averaging 15 yards per reception his last 2 years in the NFL after 20 yards per reception as a rookie. 4 TDs last year, guys, and he can absolutely spike in critical weeks. And we already talked about our belief in the Raiders offense to kick off this draft with Fernando Mendoza, the number 1 overall pick, the best center in the NFL, and a top 3 offensive line with Clint Kubiak, who just won the Super Bowl with Sam Darnold. And look at what Jalen Nailor did last year, guys. A top 4 fantasy football finish in a week. And now that was as the wide receiver 3 behind Jefferson and Addison with freaking JJ McCarthy. Now, Nailor is the clear wide receiver 1 on the Raiders. Correlates perfectly with this team, and I absolutely love it. So, I mean, we could take Mendoza, guys, because of our belief in Nailor, Bowers, and Jeanty, but I think we're going to be cool on quarterback, to be quite honest. So we can see who we take here. Tre Harris is an option. Someone to look at. Let's go Tre Harris. Let's go Tre Harris on this team at 162. A little bit early. 17 picks early for Tre Harris. I don't really care, to be honest. Love his upside. Love his upside. Obviously correlates as a backstack with Justin Herbert. So we get more of that Chargers correlation at very cheap prices. And frankly, guys, there's no difference to me. between around a 14 and 15 pick. There's no difference at all. Just go ahead and get your stack and not try to be cute and push it and risk getting sniped for no reason. Just get that stack. Tre Harris is just a freaking stud. Very good functional player in an offense. Great run blocker. Great, contested catch guy. Really is an archetype that the Chargers don't have at wide receiver. I mean, outside of Oronde Gadsden, if he does decide to play wide receiver. Just does a bit different stuff, just different profile than Ladd McConkey, different profile than Quentin Johnston, and a player that's just a player that I really enjoy on this team. And that makes total sense with this team as well. Mendoza goes, guys. As I said, love him. I think he has tremendous upside, but since we already have Caleb and Herbert on this team, and we invested 6th and 7th round draft capital in them, I feel really confident in saying that we can just shut it down at quarterback and invest our final picks at this draft in taking positions that can actually win us the championship. And what other better example can I give you guys than taking Brandon Aiyuk here in round 15, a player that is a very unknown quantity, to be kind at this point. But Brandon Aiyuk, guys, can absolutely be a league winner for me in this wide receiving core, because, guys, Brandon Aiyuk, we know if he's healthy and he's locked in mentally, he has wide receiver 1 upside in fantasy football. He proved that 2 years ago, the last fully healthy season he had, with a 1,300-yard season, guys. And so now, obviously, still has not been cut by the by the 49ers, but all signs are pointing to him signing with the Commanders, because I don't know if you guys have seen this, but Brandon Aiyuk is unfollowed everyone he knows on Instagram and simply only followed Commanders, Jaden Daniels, his wife, and the Commanders page. So to me, Brandon Aiyuk is going to be a Washington Commander. If Brandon Aiyuk is healthy, he will be the Commanders' wide receiver 1, and he will overtake Terry McLaurin by midseason as he gets fully integrated into the Commanders' offense. And so, to me, taking him here in pick 15 is why we go double quarterback, elite quarterback in round 6 and 7, because the upside of Brandon Aiyuk is just someone who can absolutely crush in fantasy football and access this team's ceiling to a different dimension. And tacking on a third quarterback here when we already invested in Caleb and Herbert, to me, just doesn't make sense from a pure ceiling perspective to win and sweep the podium of Best Ball Mania 7. And shout out to Liam Murphy as well, because he really made this point yesterday on his show with Davis Maddock, and it really resonated with me. And so I'm happy to act more so on that. And that's something that I've been thinking about as well. When you already have 2 elite quarterbacks, there's no reason to take another one. And so we're OTC again, guys. Tank Bigsby is falling massively in ADP. We can look to just select Tank. I don't see a reason why not to at these prices. A receiver would be nice, but I'm cool taking Tank. I think this is a great price for Tank Bigsby at 186. A player that I don't take much of, but 13 picks past ADP, why not? Anything happens to Saquon, Tank is going to be an absolute, league winner. Don't need to say anything about that. We know Tank is extremely explosive. We know how he looked last year on the in the Philadelphia Eagles offense. So happy to get Tank here at 186 as our RB3 with his contingent upside. And we already have a 2-3-8-3 build, guys, and we have 2 more picks on this team. We probably will use them at running back because we have 3 running backs at this point. Who do we want those running backs to be is another question. Kamara is an option. We could look at Vidal. We could look at Adam Randall. Receiver, I think, is completely cooked, guys, at this point. Dontavian Wicks is there if we're interested in taking another Eagles player after we just went. What's his name? Okay, guys. This is an interesting spot to be on the board at. I am going to go Kamani Vidal. I am going to go Kamani Vidal first. I think he is one of the best running back picks you can make at the end of drafts. Going to be the clear RB2 on the Chargers offense, which we've already invested in. And now my decision, guys, lies in if I want to take a 9th receiver or do I want to take a 5th running back? What do I think delivers more upside? Do I take a Xavier Thomas or an Adam Randall? That's the real question, guys. Who presents more upside? Xavier Thomas to me is a Curtis Samuel type player, which is super spike week dependent, obviously, but Adam Randall could just be a freaking every down back if anything were to happen to Derrick Henry. Looking at this, guys. Give me a second. I'm not going to lie, guys. I'm going to take Adam Randall on this team. I mean, Xavier Thomas, I love. Obviously correlates with this team. But to me, Adam Randall can just absolutely take this team's ceiling to another dimension. With his upside as a 3-down running back on the Ravens offense. And I do want exposure to the Ravens offense. I do think Declan Doyle, we saw what Zay Flowers said about him yesterday, that he's just a genius. And I think Adam Randall will be deployed in this offense in different ways, in different packages. So I'm just going to take him here. Honestly, I'm going to take him here. A player I am sprinkling in my drafts every once in a while. But a player, like I said, that can really just elevate this running back room to a ceiling perspective that is transcendent, to be quite frank. And this team is honestly one of my most favorite teams I've ever drafted in BBM 7, guys, for a number of different reasons. I mean, let's recap. We're going to call this the all-alien draft, guys, because we start with Jeanty and Bowers. Who, in my opinion, Jeanty is one of the greatest running back prospects we've ever seen, as we talked about to start this video. And to me, Brock Bowers is no doubt the best tight end prospect we've ever seen. Basically a 6'3", 240-pound version of Puka Nacua is how I like to think about Brock Bowers. And now schemed up with Kubiak, scheming him open in ways like Puka Nacua is schemed up for the Rams. We can see Brock Bowers post 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns. Honestly, pretty easily. And at tight end, guys, that's going to unlock a ceiling, from a spike week potential and a season-long potential that is simply unattainable by every other team because of just having a player like Bowers on your team. And we pull up Burden as well in the 3rd round, guys, because we do believe that he is the next JSN. From a talent standpoint, to me, he is along the lines of a JSN type. His coach already has come out and said that this guy is just moving at a different speed than everyone else. I think Burden has the mentality of an alpha. And to me, he profiles really well with how Caleb Williams succeeds in the NFL, which is that intermediate range where Caleb Williams is extremely accurate. And Luther Burden has that elite yards after catch ability, guys, to take a freaking screen 70 yards to the house, take a hitch route, shake a guy, and go to the crib, guys. And so absolutely love Luther Burden and his dynamism on the Bears offense with Ben Johnson. And Coleston Loveland, guys, I mean, probably the 2nd greatest tight end prospect we've seen of the last decade, and was drafted higher than Brock Bowers at pick 10 overall, handpicked by Ben Johnson. The Bears are going to go 12 and 13 personnel, very heavy with Komet and Sam Roosh. And what that does, guys, is it opens up Coleston Loveland to be the primary receiver in those formations. And you can motion Coleston Loveland out to X. You can motion him in the slot. He's basically a positionless receiver that plays tight end, as does Brock Bowers. And these two guys, to me personally, are aliens in the NFL and are players that other teams can try to copy with their, wide NFL teams, drafted tight ends early. But to me, they're players that you cannot replicate because they're just truly, the definition of generational from their ability to be essentially wide receivers in 6'5", 6'3", 240, 250-pound bodies. And not only that, from their, player profile perspective, but just the offensive environment that they both find themselves in, guys. I mean, we see them both tied to two of the greatest offensive minds, in my personal opinion, in the NFL, with Clint Kubiak and Ben Johnson, who know how to maximize their skill set to reach their potential. And so I can see Brock Bowers and Coleston Loveland, quite honestly, guys, both being first-round picks next year. Brock Bowers, to me, I've said this earlier in the video, I can easily see Brock Bowers being a top 3 pick in fantasy football next year when he puts up 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns and absolutely just eviscerates the field at tight end. And I could easily see Coleston Loveland being a second-round pick where Brock Bowers goes, guys, because Coleston Loveland can easily put up 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns himself this year as Caleb Williams is wide receiver 1, essentially. And so, to me, getting them on the same team unlocks a range of outcomes and potential that is essentially unattainable in any other way this year, guys, and is extremely unique for me and extremely unique to BBM7 because in no other time in fantasy football history, in my time playing, guys, I've been playing fantasy football for over a decade now at this point. I've never thought of the double elite tight end strategy as something that was viable and really understood its potential, honestly, guys. But to me, it feels natural this year because not only are you able to take essentially 2 players who I believe have the ceiling production outcomes of wide receiver 1s, like I think Coleston Loveland can simply straight up outproduce Drake London this year, guys, no doubt. And combining him on a team with Bowers puts Coleston Loveland's production in our flex spot. And so to be able to get wide receiver 1 production in your tight end and flex spot the entire year elevates your team's floor and your team's ceiling to a literal different dimension than the rest of the playing field. And not to mention that having essentially elite wide receiver 1 production in your tight end and flex, and having a player at running back who I believe could be the 101 at running back this year in Ashton Jeanty, who is just as talented, if not more talented, than Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson. And in an offensive environment, which I believe Jeanty is going to get more touches than Bijan and Gibbs and especially as a receiver, because he's not competing for targets with Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Zachariah Branch, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, and Sam Laporta. He's just straight up competing for targets with Bowers and a guy who we took in the 13th round in Jalen Nailor, who I think is a underrated player, guys, but obviously not anywhere near the range of talent from a Amon-Ra St. Brown or a Drake London or a Jameson Williams, guys, who goes in the top 50 picks of fantasy football. And so Jeanty, to me, guys, could easily eclipse 1,000-yard receiving season and a 1,500-yard rushing season this year, just being the entire, engine of the Raiders' run game and an extension of their pass game as well, and being essentially their wide receiver 2 behind Brock Bowers, their wide receiver 1, guys. And so the ceiling, the floor of Jeanty and Bowers to me is tremendous, and the ceiling is something that I don't think people can imagine. That's a 25-point per game season at tight end from Brock Bowers and a 30-point per game season from Ashton Jeanty. And I do believe, guys, given how consolidated the Raiders offense is, that they can both achieve that in the same season, which is, insane and so counterintuitive because the Raiders just came back from having the worst record in the NFL, guys. But that's how fast things can turn around in the NFL with elite coaching and massive offensive line improvement and massive quarterback upgraded play. And the Raiders just checked all 3 of those boxes to basically the best possible way you can, hiring a top 3 offensive mind, the best center in the NFL, and the 101 at quarterback, guys. So, yeah. And like I said, getting Loveland accesses a ceiling that is just essentially unattainable through any other method. And like I said, still getting a running back who we believe to be the 101 potentially at running back, and a wide receiver who I believe from a profile perspective, an environmental situation perspective, can be the next, JSN and post a 1,200 to 1,500 yard season on the Chicago Bears, stacked up with Caleb Williams, the quarterback that's driving Luther and Loveland to production, and a player in and of his own right, Caleb Williams, who was considered a potential generational transcendent player coming out of USC a couple of years back, guys. And so I watched an interview with Caleb Williams, guys, and with the Max Crosby podcast. And Caleb Williams said, Max Crosby asked him, what is your goals that you're trying to look at this year in year 3 in the NFL? And what do you think you need to do to make a difference to make that leap? And Caleb Williams said, guys, you know what he said? With a dead straight face. And he laughed a little bit. He chuckled about it because he knows how this sounds, but he truly believes it in his heart. He said, yo, man, I'm trying to be the best offense of all time. I'm trying to put up 40 points a game. And he knew what that NFL record for most points in a game was, which was like 38 by Peyton Manning in 2013. And he's like, yeah, that's what me and Ben are going for this year. And guys, the Bears offense has the talent to do that. I mean, they have Luther Burden, Coleston Loveland, Rome Odunze, Xavier Thomas, who's a nice, dual, just an athlete. And they can go 13 personnel, they can go 12 personnel, they can go 11 personnel. Any formation, guys, they can go to it and put elite players on the field at all positions. And they have an elite offensive line as well, guys. So to me, 50 total touchdowns for Caleb Williams is in the range of outcomes easily. Not easily, but it's in the range of outcomes. And obviously Luther and Loveland, guys, are going to skyrocket and be, these are bargain prices for an offense like that, guys. And so feel super grateful to get them stacked up on this team. And we look at Jaylen Waddle, guys, who we went over, is simply from a profile perspective, guys, one of the most underrated football players in the NFL, and has just been pigeonholed behind Tyreek Hill, who is literally a transcendent wide receiver and, basically the most unique archetype of player we've ever seen in the NFL. And he's been pigeonholed behind him, for the last 3 years in Miami, behind a horrible offensive line and a horrible quarterback. And not horrible, too, is not horrible. He just is not conducive to Jaylen Waddle's skill set. And now he comes into a situation, Jaylen Waddle, where he's airdropped into a Sean Payton offense, so a great offensive mind, with the Denver Broncos having the best offensive line in the NFL. And Bo Nix is a system quarterback, guys, meaning that he's going to do whatever Sean Payton tells him to do and get the ball out on time and accurately. And so Jaylen Waddle, we went through his rookie year. He can win at all quadrants of the field, underneath, intermediate, and deep. And I feel like we're actually going to see Jaylen Waddle's game be unlocked for the first time in his career. And 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns is well within the range of outcomes for Jaylen Waddle. And we could easily see Jaylen Waddle finish within, honestly, the top 10 receivers this year in fantasy football and outproduce guys like Nico Collins, Chris Olave easily, because Jaylen Waddle is a better player than Chris Olave. He's a better player than T. Higgins. He's a better player than Devontae Smith, just like he was at Alabama. And to be able to get him to fall all the way back to us in the middle of the fifth, guys, is massive blessing. So shout out to this room for that. And this is why you draft at all times of the day and all times of the year, because getting Waddle at 55 is, in my opinion, not going to last at all and be damn near impossible in the future. And so that's awesome to get Waddle there. And then, like we talked about earlier, guys, look at this point of the draft. Just very, very middling running backs and unproven, fake alpha wide receivers at this point, with DK Metcalf, who's tied to ancient Aaron Rodgers, and they just brought in Michael Pittman Jr., so that's going to take away a lot of targets from DK. QJ, who I do, there's a time and place for QJ, but certainly being a top 70 pick, 77 pick is too high for him. And Alec Pierce, who, is basically QJ. And we look at these running backs, guys. In my opinion, none of these players in this range have the ability to be difference makers in fantasy football this year. And they definitely have spiking potential. Don't get me wrong. Pierce, QJ, Metcalf, they could definitely put up 20 points in a game. But to me, why not take a quarterback who can be the MVP of the NFL, who can literally lead the league in passing yards and unlock his rushing ability this year with Mike McDaniels, guys, being hired to specifically push Justin Herbert to his maximum capabilities as a player. And this Chargers offense, guys, is now, going to be bringing in the best combination of tackles in the NFL with Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater, bringing in Mike McDaniels, a top, 3 offensive mind in the NFL. And this, the energy of the Chargers is just amazing. And so why not get a quarterback there who has great backstacking options like an Oronde Gadsden, who we believe, as I mentioned, has the most upside at tight end outside of Coleston, Loveland, and Bowers. And the reason I say that, guys, about Gadsden and why taking Herbert there is just insane, because it's so crazy that guys like Caleb Williams, you can't backstack Caleb Williams with anyone besides Xavier Thomas in round 18. Justin Herbert, who from a statistical standpoint could, produce at the very same level of Caleb Williams, you could take his wide receiver 3, or Tre Harris could easily be the wide receiver 2 for the Chargers this year, guys, and his tight end 1 in Oronde Gadsden in rounds 12 and 14. And so that to me is just crazy, to be honest, and just why I like taking Herbert here, because when you do Caleb and Herbert or any 2 elite quarterbacks in this range, you can just take your hands off the wheel at quarterback and say, I'm done, and focus all your energy on taking skill position players that can unlock your team and, be that difference maker for you down the stretch. And so Herbert here, like I said, unlocks the ceiling for us with the backstacks of Gadsden, who player profile has most comparable to Hunter Henry. I think he's a much better player than Hunter Henry. This is basically kind of disrespectful to Oronde Gadsden because these testing metrics are not reflective of who he is as an athlete. He's much faster than a 4.7, but guys, Oronde Gadsden in college was very, very amazing. I mean, as a true 19-year-old, guys, he put up 1,000 yards. Do you know how unreal that is at wide receiver / tight end for a player of Oronde Gadsden's size, 6'5", 243, with, NFL pedigree in his family tree, to put up a 1,000-yard season at age 19? And then, as a junior, he was basically hurt as a freshman, only played 2 games. As a junior, probably thinking like, okay, I'm about to come out in the NFL. I just balled out, had one of the greatest tight end seasons we've seen at age 19 in NFL and college football history. Oh crap, he gets hurt and puts up, plays just 2 games. So he's like, okay, I guess I have to come back to school. And what does he do in his senior year, guys? Basically repeats what he did as a junior, basically what he did as a sophomore, and puts up 900 yards as well. And so to me, Oronde Gadsden is just a superstar level tight end who just, fell to the 5th round because he is not a run blocking player. He does not run block. He did not test very well, as you can see here. But if you watch film, which I don't really watch that much film, but if you, look at the film and you look at his, analytical profile, guys, from a production standpoint, this guy is a superstar. A 90th percentile breakout age, 14 yards per catch, which is 75th percentile, and a 26th percentile college dominator rating, which is 81st percentile, guys. So from a analytical production standpoint, he is elite. And so the Chargers were able to scoop him up. And to me, like I said, continues to add to our strength at tight end. And iron sharpens iron. Like stack your strengths on your strengths. And to me, a Bowers, Loveland, Gadsden tight end room, guys, is something that cannot be competed with over the season and over the course of an upside perspective, especially down the fantasy football playoff stretch, because I do believe we just got access to 3 players at tight end and flex who can finish with the 25 points in a game. In Bowers' case, 25 points for a season. So to be able to get Herbert here, like I said, lets us be done at quarterback and allows us to get very, very cheap elite ceiling backstacks with Gadsden and Tre Harris, who Tre Harris could be the wide receiver 2 for the Chargers and put up a 800 to 1,000-yard season with 8 touchdowns, just being a role player in this prolific offense, guys. And I think Tre Harris is going to be on the field a ton because he is the best run blocker they have at wide receiver. And obviously, Mike McDaniels, they're going to be running the ball a lot with Jim Harbaugh. So just by him being a good role player and just good at the dirty work, I think Tre Harris is going to produce for that reason alone, guys. And so getting him here in the 14th round correlated is beautiful. We're going to continue to go deep dive and analyze this team. Jordan Addison, we went through it started his career back-to-back 900-yard season with 10 touchdowns, had a flop year with J.J. McCarthy. I think we see him bounce back with this extension eligibility this next offseason. And we see a 1,000-yard season, first 1,000-yard season for Addison. Kyler Murray has a great deep ball. Addison, with Jalen Nailor out of the picture, Addison is really the only deep threat on the Vikings offense. Obviously outside of Jefferson, but Addison is honestly a better deep threat. More explosive down the field. So I love taking Addison because he does play the Jets as well in Week 17, and that's why we put Jordan Mason here as well, a player who has averaged basically 5 yards a carry his entire NFL career. It's just kind of a no-nonsense, dirty work type player, honestly like a David Montgomery type. The Vikings felt comfortable bringing in no one at running back this offseason of note. I think Aaron Jones's body is pretty much chopped cheese at this point. And so to get a player in Jordan Mason who, guys, this is a fun fact, actually outproduced Jahmyr Gibbs on the ground at their time together at Georgia Tech. In Jahmyr Gibbs' freshman year, when Jordan Mason was a junior, and actually Jahmyr Gibbs' sophomore year as well, when Jordan Mason was a senior. And so Jordan Mason is just a really, really good football player, a really good runner of the football. We expect the Vikings offense to take a step forward after bringing in Kyler Murray, who's just, Kyler Murray might not even be special, but he's definitely an upgrade over freaking McCarthy. And so we get Mason and Addison at very cheap prices. And we could be looking at a high-end RB2 in Jordan Mason and a middling to lower-end wide receiver 2 for Jordan Addison. And look at the playoff schedule for the Vikings, guys. One of the best in the NFL. They play the Lions in a dome, shootout, Commanders in a dome, shootout, and obviously correlates with our friend Brandon Aiyuk. And then the Jets in Week 17, guys, when the Jets are going to be absolutely tanking. And that screams Jordan Mason, 25 carries, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns to me. That screams Jordan Addison, bomb, 90 yards to the house, 20 points to me. So I love getting Jordan Mason and Addison on this team. And we were blessed to get Addison with that ADP discount. And because of that, we pulled up Jordan Mason. So I really like that. And I think he's honestly the best 10th round pick you could take at running back. And to me, there's no difference between Jordan Mason and Kyle Monangai, Blake Corum. There's no difference between Jordan Mason and Chuba Hubbard. If anything, Jordan Mason has more upside than all of these guys because his offense is going to be better than the Panthers. His offense is going to be better than the Titans. His offense is going to be better than the Steelers. And he's a better football player, on the ground at least. So just not a sexy name because he was a UDFA coming out of Georgia Tech. And so, love the Mason and Addison picks. I mean, with the Worthy and Diggs picks, guys, Worthy could be that classic year 3 breakout. Obviously, first round pick, ran a 4.28, fastest 40 of all time. The Chiefs are going to be much more play action, much more run heavy this year to me, which is going to suck the defense down. And we're going to see bombs to Xavier Worthy. And we're going to see Mahomes come back with a vengeance off this ACL. And Stefon Diggs, guys, can easily be a Kansas City Chief. And so Rashee Rice is just a complete unknown. And we could be looking at getting the wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 on a Patrick Mahomes offense in rounds 9 and 11. So to me, that is just unreal upside, like I mentioned. And Stefon Diggs, we know, guys, every year 1,000 yards, 900 yards, 6 to 8 touchdowns, no matter what his offensive environment is going to be in. Put him on the Ravens, put him on the Rams. I think Stefon Diggs is going to pick an environment that's going to be conducive to him putting up statistics because that's just who Stefon Diggs is. He's about getting girls and getting stats. So getting him here at 128 is amazing. I think whenever he signs to a team, he's obviously going to skyrocket into the 7th round at minimum, 8th round. And so just getting him here was a great pick, great value pick in my opinion. And we're blessed to be able to do that 2v2 like we talked about with Romeo Dobbs. And we talked about Gadsden. No need to belabor that. For me, Jalen Nailor, guys, is an extreme sleeper at wide receiver. Completely unheralded coming out of Michigan State because he did play behind Keon Coleman, behind Jaden Reed, just in that offensive environment. And so he still was drafted in the 5th or 6th round by the Vikings, who Rick Spielman, who was the GM for the Vikings for Jalen Nailor, is one of the best wide receiver drafters we've seen over the last decade in the NFL. Drafted Justin Jefferson, drafted Jordan Addison, just knows how to draft receivers and what to look for. Jalen Nailor is extremely explosive, one of the best downfield receivers in the NFL. And we could see him having a 800-yard, 8 TD season because of how much attention Bowers is drawing from the defense and Jeanty sucking in the defense on play actions and Jalen Nailor just being down the field streaking. And yeah, just love Jalen Nailor being 6'2", 200 pounds and playing that X position, guys. We already talked about Tre Harris being a great role player on the Chargers and producing through that. Brandon Aiyuk, guys, absolute, enigma at this point. Currently has a warrant for his arrest, unfortunately. But just from an upside perspective, guys, no wide receiver has more upside than Brandon Aiyuk at these prices, really, that I've maybe ever seen in fantasy football. Because if Brandon Aiyuk is healthy, he will be playing on the Commanders as he is following them on Instagram. And he's going to be playing with Jaylen Daniels, who's the best quarterback Brandon Aiyuk's ever played with in his career. I mean, the dude played with freaking Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, and he barely got a chance to play with Brock Purdy, guys. Barely ever. I mean, the one season he did play with Brock Purdy, he put up the most efficient 1,300-yard season in NFL history in 2023. And so Brandon Aiyuk here with the best quarterback of his career, to me, is an absolute blessing. Like I said, I don't know what other word to say, guys, because Brandon Aiyuk could easily outproduce Terry McLaurin down the second half of the season once he's fully integrated into the Commanders' offense, once his body is fully ramped up. And Jaylen Daniels is going to throw Aiyuk the ball. That's his boy. Those guys are dogs and brothers going back to their time at Arizona State. And like we talked about, there is correlation with the Vikings and the Jaguars in week 16 and 17, two games that I expect to be massive shootouts, and Aiyuk to have, wide receiver one ranges of outcomes those games, guys. And so love Aiyuk there, and then being able to shut receiver down at 175 is awesome. And who do we take with the last three picks, guys? We take Tank Bigsby because he was just a massive ADP value. 14, 15 picks past ADP. Massive probably one of the best pure handcuffs you can take in fantasy football this year as the straight up handcuff for Saquon Barkley. And, 20 touches a game upside for Tank if anything were to happen to Saquon. And really the only bet I can make for Tank at this point. Was honestly a very, very highly rated prospect after his sophomore year at Auburn, and then injuries happened and he fell in the draft. He had a bad year at Auburn. Honestly, had a slow start to his career, was traded to the Eagles by the best GM in the NFL and Howie Roseman. And what did he do last year, guys? Tank Bigsby was extremely explosive, had the most yards after contact last year in the NFL on his touches, had the most yards per carry in the NFL with 6-7 yards per carry last year. So I think Tank is a really, really good bet for a pure handcuff. Same thing for Kamani Vidal, obviously correlated with our Chargers offense. And Kamani Vidal had 4 or 5 20-point games last year when called upon, and honestly a very bad offensive environment with a completely broken offensive line, with a broken play calling scheme with Greg Roman, a hampered Justin Herbert. So Vidal, guys, if anything were to happen to a Marion Hampton, could easily be a legitimately RB1 level producer, a 20-point per game producer. And I think honestly Kamani Vidal could have a standalone role because McDaniels likes to rotate running backs. And Adam Randall, guys, to me, one of my favorite players in this NFL draft. This running back draft was categorized as very weak, was categorized as, not sexy, but Adam Randall was my RB2 overall in this draft class. And, the Ravens, it seems like, had some kind of intel about this guy, inside information from Dabo Swinney, because Adam Randall was called and drafted by Ravens owner Steve Biscotti because Dabo Swinney told him, behind closed doors, that this guy has generational ability. This guy is special, not only from a physical perspective, but a mental perspective. This guy, ranked top 3 in Navy SEAL training from a mental fortitude perspective by those tests that the Navy SEALs do, was one of the highest rated, mental strength players they've ever seen. And from an athletic perspective, guys, this is a legitimately historic talent at running back from an athletic profile perspective, because 6'3", 230-pound running backs who run a 4.5, and not only that, but put up a 40-catch season in college is literally unheard of. And so to be able to get that profile of player, to learn behind Derrick Henry, who is, the perfect guy to learn behind, Adam Randall's ceiling is literally limitless. And with Declan Doyle in that offense, with Lamar Jackson, sucking in the defense and, on those read options, we could see Adam Randall absolutely explode if he was called upon. With his dynamism, with his receiving ability as a former 5-star receiver, Adam Randall there to me is just the biggest upside pick you could take in running back in the 18th round, guys. And so that's going to do it for this team. Jeanty, Bowers, Nailor, Burden, Loveland, Williams, Waddle, Herbert, Tre Harris, Gadsden, Kamani, Addison and Mason, Worthy as a backstack for the Chargers, Stefon Diggs, who knows, he could be on the Chiefs as well. Probably by far and away my most favorite team I've drafted in BBM 7, guys. This, in my opinion, is going to be the team that, one of the teams I should say that ships BBM 7 for me, and gets us that podium sweep that we envision in our mind, guys. And so just want to give a shout out to all my family for supporting me during this time of my life. All my friends who supported me with AJ Talk Sports and supporting my YouTube channel. There's nothing more I love in life, guys, than drafting fantasy football teams and talking about fantasy football and talking about the NFL and NBA, and having this and honestly, like, just happy to do what I love, guys, and just talk about it. So yeah, nothing more to say, guys. We'll see you at the top. This is the champ. This is the Best Ball Mania 7 champ signing out. Have a good night.